Priscilla Presley had one of the most famous marriages in rock history. Now she's in Australia telling us why she had to end it.
There were times like I was very lonely, times that, I was concerned about our relationship.
At 80, Priscilla Presley carries a life story that is as public as it is painful. Her legacy is forever tied to Elvis, yet the years that followed his death brought challenges far beyond the glare of Graceland. She's endured financial battles, legal disputes, family fractures, and the devastating loss of her daughter, Lisa Marie, all under the scrutiny of a world that never stopped watching her. What makes her story heartbreaking isn't myth or mere rumors, but the documented series of hardships that have reshaped her later years. Today, Priscilla stands not just as a cultural figure from America's most famous musical dynasty, but as a woman who has survived more than most people realize. Her tragedy isn't a Hollywood exaggeration. It's written in the very real events that have defined her life. Join us as we explore the life and tragedy of Priscilla Presley. Priscilla Presley at 80 is not simply a celebrity elder wrapped in nostalgia. Her current heartbreak, accumulated losses, family ruptures, and decades of exacting responsibility for a cultural empire only make sense when read against the backdrop of a childhood and adolescence that taught adaptation, survival, and emotional restraint. To grasp why the tragedies of Priscilla's later life hit with such force, we must start with the structural facts of her beginnings, her early life, movement, loss, and the making of a young woman who learned to adapt. Priscilla Ann Wagner was born on the 24th of May, 1945, at Brooklyn Naval Hospital in New York City. Her biological father, James Frederick Wagner, served as a U.S. Navy pilot and died in a plane crash when she was an infant. This was a foundational and documented loss that establishes the first pattern of absence in her life. From the start, her life was shaped by the rhythms of military service and the particular fragility of families built around deployments and relocations. In 1948, Priscilla's mother married Paul Beaulieu, an Air Force officer, and the family began a life defined by frequent relocations. Her childhood homes included addresses in Connecticut, Maine, Texas, and New Mexico, ordinary places refracted through the instability of an Air Force household. In her adolescence, the family was posted to West Germany. It was there, in the mid-1950s, that a 14-year-old Priscilla would encounter the event that redirected her life permanently. Now, there is a psychology of being the new girl. It's very obvious with frequent relocation. It creates social labor, and the newcomer learns to be amiable, unremarkable, and quick to accommodate. Biographical records and her later reflections show that she developed a keen ability to blend in and present a composed surface, regardless of the turmoil beneath. That capacity for composure, especially one so useful in a military family, also made her susceptible later to stepping into a role defined and dominated by someone else's fame and needs. Basically, her early survival strategies would later be reused in the unequal emotional economy of life with Elvis. On the 13th of September 1959, while the Beaulieu family was stationed in Bad Nauheim, West Germany, the 14-year-old Priscilla met Elvis Presley, who was 24 at the time and serving in the U.S. Army. The meeting itself was at a social gathering around his rented villa, and was the kind that was straightforward in the facts, but its implications were profound. A teenage girl who had been taught to respect authority and to adapt to adult-driven life suddenly entered a relationship with a man who occupied an almost unprecedented concentration of social, cultural, and economic power. That asymmetry of age, fame, resources, and agency framed everything that followed. From the compromises she later made to the ways her autonomy was negotiated, and the emotional template that would inform decades of her decisions. Why do these early facts matter to the 80-year-old she's become? This is not literary speculation. It is structural reading. Being raised in the orbit of institutional authority, then entering early into a relationship with a dominant public figure, created a career of caretaking and legacy management for her. When we look at the heartbreak she carries now, primarily among them the deaths and family ruptures of the last decade, we see disasters hitting a person whose early life taught her how to hold things together rather than how to protect her own interior. The early loss of her biological father, the repeated uprootings, and the formative relationship with Elvis each installed habits of compromise and stewardship. Those same habits later translated into choices like fighting legal and financial battles to save Graceland, managing family crises in the glare of public attention, and ultimately experiencing losses that a lifetime of public caretaking could not inoculate her against. Meeting Elvis and going from adolescence into adulthood. Priscilla Presley's teenage years were already marked by adaptation and displacement when she met Elvis Presley in 1959. While her early life taught her to adjust to changing environments, it could not prepare her for what would become the defining relationship of her life, one that combined fame, power, emotional attachment, and loss in ways that resonated through every chapter that followed. The first encounter of two lives that could not have been more different happened in September, while she was stationed with her family in West Germany. Priscilla Beaulieu met Elvis Presley, who was an American cultural phenomenon serving in the U.S. Army. The meeting was arranged at a social gathering with military families. The contrast between her life and Elvis's world was immediate and absolute. He was already a global figure with hit records and major movies. She was a shy teenager navigating another relocation. Their romance began quickly and would continue long after Elvis returned to the United States in 1960. The age difference was something that raised eyebrows even then, with him famously responding to her age by saying, "Why? You're just a baby," when she told him she was in 9th grade. While both parties later maintained that their relationship was not sexual until after marriage, this chapter of their story has remained one of the most controversial elements of her life's storytelling. For several years after they met, he pursued his career while Priscilla finished school. In 1963, with her parents' permission and after assurances from him about her education and care, she moved to Memphis to be closer to him. Her parents agreed only after he promised that she would attend a reputable Catholic school and live with his parents, Vernon and Dee Presley, rather than immediately in his own home. Over time, however, she spent more and more of her life at Graceland, the sprawling Memphis estate synonymous with his fame. Her life at Graceland was intensely structured. She attended school during the day and was expected to be available to Elvis at other times. This arrangement of living inside a legendary home, yet still not fully integrated into his world of friends, work, and adult life, reflected the emotional stance that would continue into her marriage. She was present at the center of a world millions admired, yet still an outsider in her own story. In December 1966, he proposed to her. She was nearly 22 by then, and he was 32. A few months later, on the 1st of May 1967, they married in a small ceremony in Las Vegas that lasted only about 8 minutes. The event was elegant but private, attended by close family and orchestrated by his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, who was known for controlling every public aspect of the singer's life. Their wedding marked not only a personal union, but a public consummation of a relationship that had always existed under intense scrutiny. Priscilla's appearance, from her hairstyle, makeup, and wardrobe, was heavily influenced by Elvis, who helped craft the polished image she presented to the world. On the 1st of February, 1968, she gave birth to their daughter, Lisa Marie Presley. The world viewed the Presley family as complete, an American royal family with a mother, father, and newborn heir to the Elvis legacy. Yet Lisa Marie's birth also marked the beginning of a deeper loneliness for her. Elvis's schedule intensified, and she took full responsibility for raising their daughter within the confines of Graceland's walls. She has said that motherhood grounded her emotionally, giving her a sense of purpose she had never felt before. But it also intensified the emotional gap between the two of them. His career was experiencing a resurgence with his comeback special and subsequent ventures into Las Vegas residencies and touring, while she found herself increasingly alone inside Graceland, managing domestic life amid a whirlwind of business, travel, and public expectations. She has spoken openly about his infidelities, noting that while she viewed him as very, very special and the love of my life, the emotional strain of his relationships with other women and his demanding public life took a toll on her. She has described feeling that her own identity was often swallowed by the demands of being Elvis's wife and co-parent. By the early 70s, she began expanding her life beyond her role as his wife. She started taking karate lessons, explored personal relationships outside of his orbit, and developed social ties that did not depend on him. Her karate instructor, Mike Stone, famously became the center of tabloid stories about an affair. While she has clarified that her emotional distance from Elvis had developed long before this relationship, her connection with Mike symbolized something larger. She was finally beginning to define herself for the first time in her adult life. She has said that the decision to leave Elvis in 1972, but it was only finalized the next year. The divorce was not a result of a lack of love, but of an increasing awareness that she needed to discover her own life beyond his orbit. Emotional neglect, feelings of invisibility, and the relentless pressure to conform to a role defined largely by his fame all contributed to her decision. While they remained close after the divorce, maintaining joint custody of Lisa Marie and speaking frequently until he died in 1977, the psychological pattern established during their courtship and marriage continued to echo throughout Priscilla's life. The death of Elvis didn't finally loosen her immediate ties to his dynasty. Instead, it seemed to pull her in closer. Guardian of the legacy, saving Graceland, and carrying the Presley burden. When Elvis Presley died suddenly on the 1st of August 1977, the world mourned a cultural giant. But for her, the shock marked the beginning of a new and far more demanding chapter. She was no longer his wife, but she was now something arguably more difficult. She was seen as the steward of his legacy, the protector of their daughter's inheritance, and the emotional anchor of a family thrown into chaos. This era, defined by financial crisis, public scrutiny, and the weight of expectation, explains much of the emotional exhaustion visible in her at 80. It's the period in which she became the person who held everything together because no one else could. His death was unlike almost any other celebrity loss of its time. It triggered national mourning, media saturation, and a tidal wave of public curiosity. She found herself thrust back into the spotlight she had carefully stepped away from after their divorce. She had to grieve privately while answering to an entire world that believed it had a claim on his memory. She has spoken about the numbness that followed those first days, the surreal experience of comforting fans, supporting the family, and trying to shield 9-year-old Lisa Marie from the tidal wave of global attention. As a divorced mother raising his only child, she suddenly carried the emotional weight of helping Lisa Marie understand not only her father's death, but also the public's fixation on him. She has described this period as one of the hardest of her life, a time when she was forced to be both mother and emotional anchor. Her instinct to keep the family together became the role she would inhabit for decades. Although Elvis had earned hundreds of millions in his lifetime, his finances at the time of his death were in disarray. Mismanagement, excessive spending, and a costly lifestyle had left the estate strained. Graceland, beloved by fans and now a symbol of American cultural history, was bleeding money. Maintenance costs, back taxes, and staff salaries were draining cash at an unsustainable rate. As executor of Lisa Marie's inheritance until her daughter turned 25, Priscilla quickly realized that the Presley estate could go bankrupt within a few years, and she had two choices. The first was to sell Graceland and liquidate the assets, or to find a way to generate revenue. Selling Graceland would have solved the immediate financial problem, but it would have severed the cultural and emotional heart of the Presley story. It was a decision that could have altered American cultural heritage forever, and she refused to let that happen. In 1982, after extensive research, business training, and consultation with advisors, she made the bold decision to open Graceland to the public. This was a massive risk. At the time, celebrity homes were rarely turned into museums, and the Presley estate was nearly out of money, but her instincts were proven correct. Graceland became an overnight success. Fans traveled from around the world, turning the estate into one of America's most visited homes, second only to the White House for decades. Her leadership transformed a collapsing estate into a thriving multi-million-dollar operation. Under her direction, Graceland became a global tourist destination. Licensing deals expanded Elvis's reach. Revenue stabilized and surged, making sure that Lisa Marie's financial future was secured. The Presley name regained prestige after years of tabloids and chaos, as industry analysts later credited her with one of the most successful estate turnarounds in entertainment history. While this success was remarkable, it was still proof of the lifelong pattern. Priscilla was still the one who held everything together. She negotiated all business deals, managed public relations, oversaw estate staff and operations, represented the Presley family at events, protected the brand from exploitation, shielded Lisa Marie from invasive media, and maintained relationships with Elvis's extended family and fans. This was not simply administrative work. It was emotional labor that was constant, heavy, and unending. The world expected her to be perfect, and after 1997, her public identity shifted once again. She was no longer Elvis's ex-wife. She was now the keeper of the Elvis myth, the embodiment of Presley's dignity, the accessible face of a global fandom. Fans scrutinized everything about her romantic relationships, her acting roles, her cosmetic surgeries, and her public appearances. Priscilla has said she often felt she had to maintain a certain poise, not for herself, but for the image of the man the world adored. When she dated again, especially during the 1980s and 1990s, tabloids framed her partners as not Elvis. Her attempts at an independent career, taking on acting roles in Dallas like The Naked Gun and other projects, were overshadowed by commentary comparing her choices to the Presley legacy. She kept going anyway. Priscilla was a dedicated mother, and it kept her going through it all. But then, her world fractured completely overnight. The loss that broke everything, Lisa Marie Presley's death. Nothing in Priscilla Presley's long, complicated life prepared her for the 12th of January, 2023. That morning, the world still saw Lisa Marie Presley as the lone, fiercely private heir to Elvis's legacy. Someone who had endured addiction, heartbreak, and loss, yet always seemed to claw her way back to solid ground. Just days earlier, she and Priscilla had walked the red carpet together at the Golden Globes, celebrating the film Elvis and supporting Austin Butler, whose performance they both praised. Then, without warning, the unthinkable happened. Lisa Marie suffered cardiac arrest and was rushed to the hospital. Within hours, she was gone. The official cause was complications from a small bowel obstruction. The emotional reality was something else entirely. Priscilla arrived at the hospital in time to receive the news no parent should ever hear. In those moments, she wasn't a cultural figure or the keeper of an empire. She was simply a mother losing her only daughter, a loss that cuts deeper the older one gets, because there is no time left for healing, rebuilding, or trying again. Friends close to the family said she remained composed in public, but was devastated in private. Her relationship with Lisa Marie was the most defining relationship of her life. Tragedy didn't stop at grief. Within weeks of the funeral, the Presley estate erupted into a legal dispute over a 2016 trust amendment that removed Priscilla as a trustee and replaced her with Riley Keough, Lisa Marie's daughter. Publicly, the dispute was framed as a family feud. In reality, it was a collision of grief, paperwork, generational trauma, and decades-old misunderstandings. She was not fighting for power. She was fighting for clarity. She questioned the legal validity of the document, the consistency of her daughter's signature, and the lack of proper notification. She wanted the estate handled properly, not hastily. But to the outside world, it looked like heartbreak piled on heartbreak. She had lost her daughter, and now she appeared to be locked in conflict with her granddaughter, someone she deeply loved. In May 2nd, 2023, Priscilla and Riley reached a private settlement that avoided a prolonged public war. Riley became the sole trustee, and she received a separate arrangement that allowed her to remain connected to the estate and to be buried at Graceland near Elvis. On paper, the matter was resolved. Emotionally, it marked a turning point. She was now the last surviving central figure of the original Presley family. Elvis was gone. Her parents were gone. Her grandson, Benjamin Keough, had died in 2020, and now her daughter was gone too. The tragedy of losing a child at any age is devastating. Losing one at 80 when the world assumes your years of major loss are behind you is something far more shattering. She became even more reserved because she had simply gone through far too much. What are your thoughts on her life? Tell us in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.